Good afternoon and welcome. I am pleased to welcome everyone to the Willamette Women Democrats Summer Salon. This is the last of our 4 planned salons. Our goal has been to provide a forum for some of our candidates running in important federal, state, and local races. I want to acknowledge the work of our advocacy chair for the 2021 season, Louise Curran, and her committee, and for their hard work to make these salons a reality. Today's salon was coordinated by Louise Curran and Rosie Stevens. COVID-19 has dramatically changed how candidates for office can connect with their voters and how they campaign for election. That is the reason for these salons. W2D is thrilled to host recently appointed Representative Maxine Dexter, candidate Dacia Grayber, and longtime W2D member and candidate Mary Nolan. They will each speak for about 7 to 10 minutes, and then we will have a joint Q&A at the end. We have some important announcements, especially about our fall kickoff after the presentation, so I do hope that you will stay on the line to hear those. So let's begin.
Veronica, I just want to add one thing quickly. Vicki Chamberlain was instrumental in putting this together as well.
Thank you very much, Louise. Representative Maxine Dexter, MD, is going to be our first speaker. Maxine won a hard-fought primary for House District 33 in May and subsequently was appointed to that position upon the passing of Representative Mitch Greenlick. She has earned 2 BAs from the University of Washington in political science and editorial journalism, as well as her medical degree. She completed her residency, chief residency, and fellowship training at the University of Colorado, where she also earned a certificate in public health. She is a critical care physician, a pulmonologist, and currently on the front line of response to COVID-19. She's practiced with Kaiser Permanente Northwest since 2008 and served 6 years on their board of directors. A member of the Oregon Medical Association, she has served on their legislative committee. She's an activist for firearm injury prevention and has served on state and national task force to reduce gun violence. Maxine has also led efforts that called on Governor Brown and Vice President Pence to act on the COVID-19 outbreak. Dacia Grayber is a firefighter and paramedic with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. She is actually taking a break from work right now where she has somebody in working for her so she can join us. These last 5 months have found Dacia responding to medical emergencies in the midst of a pandemic. She will tell you that she has spent her life serving her community one call at a time. Much of what she has witnessed and at times even experienced in her job has informed and led her own work, both as a firefighter and as a member of her community. When she saw the homeless population hurting and in need of access to medical care, people told her there was nothing she could do. She refused to accept that and founded the Compassionate Care Center at a local Tigers shelter. When her husband was diagnosed with cancer, they took their story to the state capitol because she knew that other Oregon working families faced the difficult decision of either caring for a loved one or keeping a job. Together with a coalition of healthcare activists, they amplified this issue in Salem, and in July of 2018, Oregon passed one of the most progressive paid family and medical leave laws in the nation. It is Dacia's goal to redefine what is possible for education, for working families, for our environment, and for Oregon's future. Mary Nolan, who prefers to be called Nolan, so I will refer to her that way for the rest of today, has been a force for progress in our region and state for over 20 years. She was a co-founder of NARAL Pro-Choice Oregon, served 6 terms in the Oregon House of Representatives, including a term as Majority Leader, was the Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon for several years, and has a string of legislative achievements that have transformed our state and the Portland metro area. Few people can match her record of making progressive change in her community for the environment, for working families, for healthcare, and for human rights. She is known for pulling together effective coalitions to deliver on complex and challenging issues at every level of government. Nolan lifts up the voices and power of women and communities of color and puts her considerable talent and energy into advancing their agendas. Nolan currently serves on the boards of Teatro Malago, OSU's Avo Gordy Center for Healing, and the United Community Credit Union. She does community development work with Calderoso LLC and is a facilitator for the Conservation Project of Oregon Humanities. So without further ado, I would like to bring you Representative Maxine Dexter. Maxine?
Thank you so much, Veronica, and everyone. It feels like a long, long time ago since I met all of you and we actually could congregate together in a room, and I just missed that. So thank you for having me. I'm going to just quickly let you know that we are driving to San Francisco, which is why the background is as it is. My daughter is visiting Cal Berkeley, and so we are on our way. So I apologize for the distraction if you see the lights. So I grew up in a working family outside of Bothell, Washington, or in Bothell, Washington, which is outside of Seattle. We didn't have books in the house. Our family was really struggling with a lot of mental health issues as I grew up. And so resilience and the ability to overcome really came from my neighbors and friends and my school. And that is really what I want to see for every child. As a white young girl, I had tons of opportunities despite our lower wages that a lot of families don't have today. And so that really was something that I recognized as I got to the University of Washington, where I was able to work my way through as a USCW worker at an Albertsons grocery store. It just wasn't possible for me to see anything but opportunity with full benefits, a good wage, and the ability to pay rent in a city where I had a great university. We don't see that anymore. We really are struggling to have working wages that people can pay their way through school or even have access to university educations, especially now in this era where everything is up in the air. I was able to get to the University of Washington for medical school with a progressive entry criteria that allowed me to be able to work while I was still attending and preparing for med school. Again, something that really wasn't universal and now is much more so. My priorities have always been working families and resilient communities and a healthy environment. And that's maintained as I've worked through into the positions where I am now. Veronica already gave a lot of my background, so I'm not going to go into that too much. I just really want to focus on how the world has changed since I met with you. I believe it was in November or December of last year. We've had COVID-19 that I was becoming very preoccupied by in the end of February of this year. We saw things happening across the world that there was no reason to believe that we were extraordinary and wouldn't have this land on our shores. And so I started really digging into what the policies were that would help us prepare and hopefully flatten the curve, as a lot of us talked about at the beginning. And so I was really supported by a remarkable group of progressive women doctors who are across the country, and they lifted the plans that I was able to articulate, not just at the state level, but across the nation. And that really helped us galvanize around a plan across the country, honestly, where we became activists for action. And I'm so grateful for Governor Brown and her willingness to listen, and our state and local leaders who were willing, and it wasn't just to me, obviously, this was coming from every corner. Public health focused folks were speaking pretty loudly. And so it was that collective voice that people were willing to respond to. And I have to say that that was one of the most inspiring parts of my life, is seeing that our leaders were listening in a time of unprecedented crisis. There was no playbook for this. It was 1918, the last time our country ever, or the world ever encountered something like this. And what we've shown in Oregon is that we are willing to listen and we are willing to lead. And I look forward to continuing to help in that regard as a state representative, which has been also something that's changed since I met with you, is having been able to not just win a competitive primary, but after the sad passing of Mitch Greenlick, who honestly, it is such an honor to walk in his seat. He was an unprecedented leader in public health, and to have his position now is just really moving and remarkable. And so now as a state representative, I'm getting opportunities that honestly, I didn't really recognize how enormous they were even as I was running. And so now as I'm sitting in this seat, I am being offered support and an opportunity to really lean into healthcare. And so we're working hard to get plans kind of going for what healthcare has got to change to, because right now what we are seeing is that our public health infrastructure and our delivery systems are out of date. Fee-for-service healthcare in a pandemic doesn't work, and so we've got a lot to do. So my priorities for the 2021 session will be healthcare reform. I'm on the healthcare and behavioral health committees, as well as working families. We've got to give disability and presumed disability based on our frontline workers just being on the front lines to the community of people who are keeping us safe and keeping our worlds moving. We have to continue to protect reproductive health and freedom for not just those who have access, but for everyone. We need to increase access so that it's a real right, privilege and right. I guess I'll articulate more about this later if anyone wants to talk. And then finally, the Black Lives Matter movement has really changed the way that I even had pictured my own role in the world. And what, I've always understood my privilege, but now I understand it to a much deeper degree. And what I understand is that we have all got to lead now and make opportunity that is equitable for everyone, regardless of their background. So those are the areas that I hope to work in and lean into, and I look forward to further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine. And now we'll go to Dacia.
Thank you, Veronica. I was really excited about the idea of a summer soiree. And so I do have to give the caveat, I am at work, but I am off duty right now. I had someone come in for 2 hours and I'm on public Wi-Fi in a public space. So that becomes very important. And most importantly, I went and put on a dress because this is a summer soiree. I just, if someone out there has a glass of champagne or something, have a little for me. I can't partake. Kate's, she's giving me applause on that. So Veronica gave a great introduction kind of on my background. I've been a firefighter for 2 decades. I'm the daughter of public school teachers, and I never expected to be in this position and running for office. I've been a community advocate for the entire time I've been a firefighter, even before then. I think I was talking with my mom the other day. My first protest march was when I was 14 in front of a Wendy's to oppose whaling. I'm still not sure what the connection there was, but so I'm thrilled to be in this position now. I knew that my experience, my advocacy for the community on a grassroots level would be important. Taking that, what I'm seeing in my day-to-day work, I never had any idea we would be looking at things through the lens of COVID-19. the way, and not to beat anyone over the head with the firefighter metaphor, but there is kind of a silver lining to that, in that we have, we've known that the issues that we're seeing right now, that we're having to, we know they're there in the past. It's sort of like if you're a firefighter getting called for a smoke investigation, but you can't see where the smoke is. Now we're being called to a 3-alarm fire. The building is on fire. It's right in front of us, and we can't turn away from that. And that, to me, is just this incredible opportunity to tackle some of these issues, like Maxine said, head on. And that work, you know, of course, getting good people into office, getting progressive Democrats elected, getting folks across the spectrum who are willing to work together to move this all forward is important. But that's really when the work begins. I think there's, you know, as far as priorities, we can talk about committees later, but I think that right now everything has to come through that COVID-19 lens. And we have some wonderful tools that are already in place, like paid family leave. I would love to see that implemented even sooner if it's possible. We have a lot of green infrastructure growth that's in our area where everyone is living here for W2D that I think could be also used as job creators. And I also think we need to have really honest conversations about the tax code and what's fair for corporations and for people. And this isn't, you know, this is a team sport. This isn't something that we do alone. So everyone, and it's so weird because I'm looking on my screen and all I see are names. It's, thank you, Veronica. I can't see, you're like, yeah, I know you're out there. But we're all in this together, kind of like a group of firefighters or a group of us jumping into hazmat suits to address these calls. And it's time for all of us to get to work. So I'm going to keep it brief. The last thing I will add to my background is I also currently serve and have for the last year on OSPAC. It's a wonky thing. It's the Oregon Seismic Safety Policy Advisory Commission. In the past, it's been kind of a sleepy little committee, but all of a sudden it's gaining a lot of attention. And I don't want to scare people, but what we're experiencing right now with COVID is a shot across the bow for state resilience. And this is the time to really bring everyone in on what this looks like on resilience and recovery in the long term. Other than that, I echo a lot of what Maxine already said. I don't want to go into that, but you know, healthcare reform, and then mostly protecting working people. Where I'm working right now as a firefighter, I have been privileged enough to be on the front line with farm workers. Those were some of the first folks that we are seeing impacted by this. And I think, you know, we need to have protections first and foremost for these folks. So I'll stop for now. I know that I'm looking forward to answering questions and excited to hear from Mary.
Great. Nolan? I don't think we can hear you right now.
Thanks, Veronica. I just ate a huge slice of humble pie following Representative Dexter and Dacia, two people who have put their entire professional work into the kinds of safety, security, support for regular residents and neighbors, and particularly now, who are bearing so much of the responsibility for our collective community safety. I admire and respect and adore both of you for what you're doing, and am delighted to be able to share this stage with you. I have, as Veronica's introduction alluded to, I have been involved in public policy, politics, public service for longer than Dacia's been alive, I'm betting. My first time volunteering for a political activity was with my mom when I was in about the 3rd grade, canvassing door to door for a pro-choice Republican senator from Illinois. How times have changed. And it is sort of part of who I am, growing up in a family that was dedicated to public service. We grew up in Chicago, as I mentioned. My parents, through their church, were involved in something called Operation Push, There may be a few people here who may know what that is. It was an organization and a movement that Jesse Jackson formed to bring together Black and white, mostly faith-based groups to address racial connections, racial justice, racial equity. And here we are, some 40 years later, 50 years later, and we're talking about the same issues. And while I have prided myself for those 50 years in my sense of connection and openness and anti-bigotry, as I have been examining myself over the last 10 or 15 years, and especially over the last 6 months, I find that I have a lot of work to do, and I am eager to do it. My earlier involvement with civil rights and the Black empowerment movement, as if I am honest with myself, was derived from a sense of charity, as if I had something to give the Black community. And I now understand that my role is to be a follower. In this moment in history, I am committing my skills and my energy and my Rolodex, my network, to being a good follower. Some of you may know about the Reimagine Oregon proposal that has come forward from Black leaders that touches on issues about police oversight, police behavior, affordable housing, health services, mental health services, access to economic empowerment and economic independence. These are things from leaders of the Black community. And I am excited to be running for Metro, which has some direct responsibilities in some of the key areas in this platform, in order to open doors and opportunities and to help the Black community, as evidenced by their leaders, to achieve their agenda. I used to be very proud to be called a leader, and now I am finding that I consider a strong and most compelling compliment to be that I am a good follower, that I am someone who lifts up other voices. I'm excited about that opportunity, particularly with Metro and the affordable housing construction bond measure that voters approved a few years ago. And I have executive skills and finance skills that will help Metro and the cities and counties in the region really get the most benefit out of those taxpayer approved dollars to create the largest number of affordable housing units. Some of that will be by making sure that we oversee tight control of contracts, but some of it also will be initiating difficult conversations about how we as a region and each of the individual cities and communities around that region step up to our individual responsibilities to the collective good. I am very excited that Portland, for example, recently, just yesterday, passed the residential infill program, which will help make for affordable homes to be built in established, safe neighborhoods with great parks, good schools, all the things that will make for a satisfying and self-determined life for everyone who calls Portland home. I'm especially also interested as Metro gears up to implement the supportive services operating levy that voters approved just in May, so that we can blend that with the investments in affordable housing to really make this a place that everybody has a sense of potential, direction, and self-realization. That's what motivates me. I hope you can tell that from what I'm describing here. Metro is a pretty sleepy organization. It's not as sexy as the Oregon legislature, and I'm delighted that Maxine and Dacia will be there. But it affects daily life throughout this metropolitan region, and I want to make sure that it reflects it in ways that resonate and sing for the people who live here. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. So a couple of things about questions. There's two ways to ask a question. If you are comfortable, if you go down to your participants button, for most people, iPads, it might be at the top, but I know for, if you're on a computer, it's at the bottom, and you click on that. Then over on the right-hand side, there is a place where you can raise your hand. So if you raise your hand, then I will be able to call on you and unmute you, and you can ask a question. And otherwise, if that doesn't work best for you, then you can put your question in the chat, and I will call on you from the chat. Before I start with that, I do want to take a very quick moment to recognize some of the electeds and candidates who are here with us today. And if I miss you because I didn't recognize the name, because some I just have numbers or first names, then please feel free to put your hand up for that one, and I will try and call on you. But at this time, I would like to welcome Representative Margaret Doherty, who is currently the representative in House District 35. Margaret is getting ready to retire, although we keep calling special sessions. So we kind of don't want to let her go, but she's been doing an outstanding job for that district and for our state, and we're so glad to have her with us. Also on the call is Bridget Brooks, who is on the City Council in Tualatin, and Rob Wagner, who is our Senate Majority Leader and from my Senate district, so good to have you on the call, Rob. Also candidates, Kate Lieber, who is running for Senate District 14, which is Mark Hass's seat. He is stepping down. Garrett Rosenthal, who is also running for Metro, a different seat, so he's running for Metro District 3. And then Kimberly Culbertson, who is running for the Hillsborough City Council, and I hope I did not miss anybody. So with that, I believe I have a question from one of our board members, and that is Vicki Monroe. So Vicki, do you want to, I think you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, yes, can you hear me? I just unmuted myself. I'm gonna direct it toward Nolan, but Maxine or Dacia can respond as well. I have two children with special needs, adult children in low-income housing. Both are in Washington County, but we're very fortunate that we got them into this housing. But the issue is they both have roommates, and the way the low-income housing thing is structured right now, if one of them does something, if a roommate does something that causes him to be evicted, my son would also be evicted because they share a lease. And finding other housing is, it's ridiculous. I mean, you just can't, it just doesn't exist. So I don't know if anything can be done to, when there's two, both people are in their homes are developmentally disabled, if they can be put on separate leases, or what can be done so if somebody does something that causes an eviction, the other one doesn't get tossed out as well.
I thank you for the question, and I'm close to the issue you have at hand. My daughter is disabled as well. She is living independently with supports. She does live in an apartment on her own, so that particular question doesn't confront her. But the paucity of housing options for adults living with disabilities who are capable along a spectrum of a good deal of independence is striking in a community that should be more attuned to both the needs and the potential. I don't know the exact question, the exact answer to your question about whether you could divide that lease and whether the property owner, the program operator would accept that. I'd almost want to take this offline. If there's something I could introduce you to some people on a personal level for that specific question. But this is the kind of conversation I want to be an instigator for with the jurisdictions within the metro area, Washington County and some of the specific cities who either provide some of that housing themselves, or more often is the case where they provide grants for the construction of housing like that. This is similar to the difficult conversation that I think we need to be willing to have in the region about how we can step up to make this a community where people of various abilities and disabilities, various incomes, various educational backgrounds can thrive and be independent and be part of the community in a space that's respectful and dignified. I wish I could give you specifics on your particular case, but not knowing the details, I can't here. But I would love to help you offline if that would be of interest to you.
Yes, it would. I would love to contact you separately. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Margaret Doherty, and I am trying to unmute you, but I'm not sure if I can. I've been trying. So can I get some help unmuting? Oh, there we go. Go for it, Margaret.
Myself.
There you go. Great.
Well, thank you. Hey, listen, this question is for Dacia, and it's about when you get elected, what committees would you like to serve on, and what kind of background do you have that would bring some good expertise to those committees?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking that. As I've gone into this just a little bit, so the first committee, I'll just jump into that, would be emergency preparedness and veterans. And my academic background, although I am a firefighter, I have an academic background in emergency management and homeland security. That second thing isn't real popular right now, but I actually did most of my work on white supremacy interdiction, not realizing how completely timely that would be, how all the issues that I've researched from, from what we're seeing with the Boogaloo movement, all of this would come into play in this moment in time. And then the other part of that was, of course, the emergency management piece, specifically working on issues related to Cascadia. Emergency preparedness and veterans is a committee that Nolan, you said earlier that Metro is not the sexy arm of things. I think in the past, emergency preparedness has been that committee. It's been like the Metro-esque committee in the legislature. And all of a sudden it's getting a lot of attention. People are going, wow, this really matters. And I have a lot of experience and energy to bring to that. I also, while I'm not a veteran myself, I serve with a large population of veterans in the fire service from all branches of the military. And I'm excited to bring a Democrat perspective to that, to lean into that and find out how to best represent their interests and their needs. I also, interfacing with the VA and the healthcare side of things, I see the need for that. Secondly, I make no secret of the fact that I am a die-hard labor advocate. We are losing labor voices in the legislature, and I will be unapologetic and collaborative, but I would like to be on business and labor. I feel like that is a spot where we need to have strong labor voices that know how to build coalitions, that know how to take a stand and know you know, it's a little cliche to say speak truth to power, but there needs to be a bit of a reckoning for that labor voice. It is labor that is primarily on the front line of the COVID crisis right now, and I see it as almost a moral imperative to bring that to the legislature. Hopefully I didn't just talk myself out of that committee. But thank you for the question.
So this is a question for both. Let's start with Maxine and then Dacia. So Maxine, you just went through a, what, 15-hour special session, a good portion of which was related to dealing with budget issues. So would you like to share a little bit about how you see that going forward? And I guess I would like to ask, because from my perspective, I think we need to change the lens that we look at budget decisions. I think for too long, we've said that we were looking at them, quote unquote, practically. And so while there were important things that needed to be done, we obviously couldn't deal with that right now. And I would certainly like to see an equity lens and a green lens overlaid, and a lens looking to the future, so that we're not making decisions today that make it impossible for us to succeed in some of these arenas. So there's my little prejudice in there, but I'd like your perspective on the experience, first of all, and then how you see it going forward, because we're certainly not going to come out of our financial challenges overnight.
No, thank you so much for that question, Veronica. So first and foremost, I absolutely agree with the need to shift the lens with which we survey our budget. And what the budget really is a collection of value judgments that we've made as leaders about where we're going to put our money and how we're going to invest. So what I can bring to this role is one, a lot of business and finance experience. I was the first woman to chair the board of directors at Northwest Permanente, and so spent a lot of time looking at budgets, making hard decisions about, you know, do we invest in pensions? Do we maintain the defined benefit? How do we shift our healthcare expenditures? It's a micro environment very similar to what would happen at the state level. So I am hoping, and I'm not making any secret of this, to be appointed to the Health and Human Service Budget Subcommittee on Ways and Means, because I think that it is the fundamental piece that as a healthcare and behavioral health committee member, I need to be able to really help make those judgments in an equitable way with a lot of folks who have a lot more experience than me. But I think as a provider, I have a very different, and one who ran a healthcare business, what I have to offer that's unique is an understanding of how healthcare delivery works, as well as how healthcare payment works. And I also work for KP, and as a lot of you may know, it's a capitated budget, meaning that we get a per member per month payment, and we get that money regardless of what people need. And our job is to keep people healthy, and we make more as a company, as an insurance company, as providers, when we keep people healthier. And so our values are aligned with keeping people healthy, and I think that that's where we need to go. We need to get rid of fee-for-service medicine. What that incentivizes is extra care, because it makes people more money. And 27% of our state's budget goes into healthcare. We have enough money in healthcare to robustly insure every Oregonian, regardless of their documented status, regardless of their job. I think we need to uncouple healthcare from employment and give people security that we absolutely are seeing right now that they need when their jobs and their livelihood, as well as their health, are in jeopardy. And if there was ever a moment that we can do it, it's now. And as a budget value judgment, we are spending far too much on healthcare, and that needs to get reinvested in public health infrastructure, education, and working families.
Thank you. Dacia?
Maxine, those were great answers. I'm not sure how much I can add to that conversation. I think back to your point, Veronica, of looking at those overlays, you know, I see this as a two-part process. First, we need to stop the bleeding. And I think that's what's happening in the short session right now. And hard decisions are being made and they're moving into that. But secondly, we need to look at the long-term health of the state and have really, I think, uncomfortable conversations about our tax code as well. You know, speaking with folks at Oregon Public Policy Center, you know, we have so many corporations that have reclassified. They've gone from C Corps to pass-throughs, and we're losing hundreds of millions of dollars in this state. And rather than having some of those conversations with our business community, we're taking it off the backs of the folks that are making minimum wage, our state workers, our frontline workers. And that needs to be, that's not something that's going to happen overnight, obviously, but that needs to be part of the conversation. And I think that also is tied into the equity lens that you talk about as well. We have in the past sort of crumbled when it comes to making those hard decisions and moving them forward, or we've done it in ways that didn't bring everyone to the table. And we're in a position right now, again, that COVID lens, where every single person in this state is impacted by this. I think we have an opportunity to work together to bring voices from rural Oregon and Eastern Oregon that see the need for this transformative change in how we generate that. So.
Thank you. And then for Nolan, I know that Metro is facing some challenges also financially with a lot of changes that have happened because of COVID. So if you have some comments you would like to make in that arena, that would be great. We're not hearing you right now.
You're right, Veronica. Metro has faced some serious operating budget deficits as a result of COVID. And it's largely related to the venues. The convention center has been shuttered since 1st of March. The Performing Arts Center is shuttered. The zoo was shuttered for a long time and only recently was able to open. To be honest, Metro's general fund receives net proceeds from those operations to cover some of the planning, some of the direct services that are provided. And without that revenue, Metro had to make some very serious cuts, furloughs to its staff. And the people hit hardest in that were the people who worked at those venues, at the convention center, at the Performing Arts Center, at the zoo. And those are people who are making not minimum wage. They are almost all represented either by AFSCME or by the Laborers International Union or by the Performing Arts Union. But they are not the highest paid employees at Metro. I think Metro did a responsible job in the way they made those cuts. But I think also what we've had to come to grips with is that kind of dependency on that revenue stream for Metro services leaves us compromised, leaves those workers and the people who receive the services that they provide at risk. I've talked with Lynn Peterson. I hope that I'll be able to work with Garrett on this when we both join the Metro Council. Not so much in the way of emergency preparedness, as Dacia talked about, but financial resiliency preparedness that Metro should undertake. I do think Metro has a significant role in direct emergency planning for the entire region around some of the seismic issues. You know, the bridge system, although the bridges are by and large owned by ODOT or the counties, Metro is the convener within the region for transportation issues and should play a role in pulling together the region to make investments and prioritize being prepared for that. And I have a background, as some of you may know, in public works. I can bring some insight into that. I know how to ask questions that lead groups to really wrestle with the opportunities in front of them, and I'm eager to do that at Metro.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any hands. Remember, you can put something in the chat if you have a question. Okay, well, thank the three of you very, very much. I'm so glad that you could all be with us, even though Dacia was at work and Maxine was driving, and that is actually one of the minor privileges of Zoom meetings, is that we can be in very disparate places and still all get together. And I think it's really been informative. And we, of course, wish you all the very best in your endeavors and campaigns. And we're looking forward to a very good November. I do have three very important announcements before we finish. First of all, coming to your mailbox next week, hope you can see this, but will be a flyer. This is our membership renewal request. It's a bit different format this year. It's a brochure rather than a letter. I want to remind everybody that your membership is critical for our continued operation. So please renew as soon as possible. Renewal time is also your opportunity to contribute to our Political Action Committee, or PAC. We do look forward to making contributions to critical local races in our community. And we make those contributions based on the support from you that makes it possible. I have a couple of important dates that I'd like you to mark your calendars. On Wednesday, September the 9th at 4:30, we will be kicking off our 2021 season with Senator Jeff Merkley via Zoom. The senator has not been able to join us since his primary race for Senate, and that was quite some time ago. So we are thrilled to have him back as he runs for re-election. We did move our meeting to Wednesday because he will probably be joining us from Washington, D.C., and that way we guarantee that he's not on a plane during our meeting. So Zooming from planes is not quite yet possible. So please mark September the 9th, Wednesday, 4:30 with Senator Jeff Merkley. And then on Sunday, September the 13th at 4 o'clock, we will be having our annual Summer Lakeside fundraiser. This event will be via Zoom, but this is the place that we see it from. It will start at 4 p.m. and we will be having 3 wonderful Democratic guests that we are going to support financially with the proceeds from this fundraiser. We will have Shamia Fagan, who is running for our Secretary of State. And in my humble opinion, this is the most important race within the state of Oregon. The Secretary of State has a very big say about how redistricting goes, and we must have a Democratic Secretary of State. So we look forward to hearing from her. Also will be Deb Patterson, who is a candidate for Oregon Senate District 10, which is Salem. And this is a very critical pickup seat to strengthen our majority in the Senate and to ensure that we can, I don't know how to politely say it, but discourage the Republicans from walking out whenever difficult conversations come up. And then the third candidate who will be joining us at that fundraiser and benefiting from it will be Garrett Rosenthal, who is a candidate for Metro District 3. So our save the date went out via email yesterday morning, and the full invitation will be out the week after the convention. So again, September 13th at 4 p.m. We look forward to seeing all of you. And otherwise, thank you very much for joining us. And we will see you at the fundraiser, and then we will see you in September. And again, thank you, Mary, Dacia, and Maxine. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Veronica. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Good night,
you so much.
everyone.
Bye.
Good night.